Welcome back to Couchside. Tonight we're going to talk about, well, unless you've been living under a rock the past week, you would have realized that Joe Biden has officially announced that he's running for president in 2020 under the Democratic ticket, and he's also had his first rally since then as well, and starting to put out some campaign ads. So we're going to have a discussion on this. Gerald, what are your initial thoughts on Joe Biden officially running for president, and how do you think he's going to do?
It's a popular face. Essentially, it's a popular Democratic face. The people already love the Obamas, at least on the Democrat side. Obviously, for the right, not so much. But, you know, it's a familiar face. It's kind of almost the same case of, like, Al Gore running after Bill Clinton, you know, stop being president. Already, you know, we already know it's a very crowded Democratic primary. Bernie Sanders, who was originally in the lead, now is in second, close behind Elizabeth Warren. But yeah, after the announcement in that first rally, Joe Biden is the clear front runner.
Well, and you mentioned the polls and who was the front runner before, but like,
who the hell are they asking?
What was interesting to me is that whenever you watched the news and looked at like their polls for who this is the front runner, they were putting Joe Biden at the top of their list before he even announced. Like seemingly for months. It was just like, oh, you know, we don't want to say Bernie's the front runner. Let's just have Joe Biden's poll numbers up there just for the fun of it. Like,
and it's so reminiscent of like 2016. It's like, I don't think, like, Bernie Sanders could cure cancer and the media would find some way to put Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden in front of him. Like, the media just doesn't like Bernie Sanders. But a lot of youth do. A lot of younger people do. A lot of extreme left do. But Joe Biden is definitely the machine-made Democratic candidate. You know what I mean? Kind of like a Hillary Clinton, you know. Spewed out by the machine. Good luck against Trump, pretty much, is what they're saying right now.
Well, let's talk about Joe Biden's poll numbers, because they actually went up after he announced, which is actually kind of a surprise. A lot of people thought it was going to tailor off a bit. But he had his first rally and has announced, and he's actually at 39%, clearly leading everybody right now in those polls. Yeah. Actually at 50% among minorities, a huge lead there. And I started to think about, well, how did this happen? Because I honestly thought that, I mean, granted, Joe Biden's going to have the fundraising, he's got the name recognition, but really I think what it comes down to is that he's not going to be able to only make the case, I'm the candidate to beat Trump, look at my poll numbers versus Trump. He's also going to be able to point to the fact, I think where he's getting a lot of his support from early on, it's just that, it's that Obama age nostalgia, I think is what it's coming from. Like, people are looking back and being like, oh no, he was the vice president Obama, we need to return to the Obama years.
Exactly.
And I think that's where a lot of the support's coming from, actually. That, so that's where I think a lot of it's coming from. That, and let's be honest, Joe Biden, name recognition, Obama nostalgia. He's going to have the media probably helping him along the way at this point. And if he ever gets an Obama endorsement or like Obama campaigning for him, he's probably going to be done at that point.
Yeah, I mean, and I believe, honestly, if I had to make a educated guess on who's going to take on Trump in 2020, it's going to be Joe Biden, no question. Just the way that is positioned here. I mean, people, you know, we've been unsure Joe Biden was going to run. He kind of kept it close to chest. And here we are. After every other Democratic candidate has announced that they were running, here he is, virtually to sweep them all away. But again, you know, we've talked about this in previous episodes when we were talking about Alex Yang, and we were talking a few videos before that. What's his plan, though? Because all I heard, you know...
Well, and that's the thing. If you watch what, like, the speeches he's given since announcing, if you watch his, like, initial campaign ad, I don't see any policies in there.
None.
It's just like basically, oh, like his ad was showing like Charlottesville and like basically it's going back to the whole like, oh, Trump bad, we need to return to decorum politics. Like that's been his message, and I thought that's a message that like wouldn't resonate, but his poll numbers are still high.
But here's my thing. His poll numbers are high against the Democrats. That's fine for his own party. But when it comes to November of 2020, it's going to matter on the independents, the swing voters. What they're looking for policies. They're not looking for, oh, we need to get rid of Trump, because they couldn't care less. You know, I think a lot of, you know, quite a few independent voters are in the boat of like, you know, is Trump or whatever, like, who cares? You know, what's your policy? What are you saying that resonates change for the country? And again, I think that's the biggest hurdle for the Democrats going forward, is that they don't seemingly have a plan outside of all this stuff has happened since Trump is president. Oh, he's so bad, this, that, and the other. Well, you got to come up with some policies for independent voters who are looking for positive change. With Elizabeth Warren, she's talked about getting rid of student loan debt, which is amazing for any millennial under 35 with a ton of student loans. Not exactly probably financially feasible. Who knows? I don't know. Probably. It'd be great. And then Bernie Sanders, of course, he runs on virtually a democratic socialist platform, a lot of social programs, healthcare for all, and things like that. Those people have plans. Joe Biden is just a popular face in a very crowded, very busy Democratic crowd.
Well, and I wonder if Joe Biden's going to have a Jeb Bush moment, though. Because, I mean, yes, the top issue that they polled recently that matters to the Democratic primary voters is electability, being able to beat Trump, and Joe Biden generally gets high marks there. But right under that is Medicare for all. Like, a lot of people are behind that policy now. We know Bernie's the one that architected it.
Yeah.
So, and we know Joe Biden doesn't want it. So I wonder if
Joe Biden
some of
also doesn't want legal marijuana as well.
Right, and I think I'm then wondering if once it gets to policy discussions and you start having the debates roll around, if Joe Biden's going to turn to the next Jeb Bush. I think it's possible. At the same time, his fundraising numbers have been really high, interestingly enough, without a whole lot of individual donors. What does that tell you? But, hey, I mean, let's look at the reality of it, though. There's a lot of people in the Democratic Party that are, middle-aged or elderly and are past that point where they think, Medicare for all is going to help me. I don't need that. I got Medicare already. Or, I have my Social Security. So there's also that core of the Democratic Party that I think is going to come out in huge numbers for Joe Biden. Whereas for like a Bernie or one of these other progressive candidates, they're really going to need to consolidate that younger vote.
Yeah. I mean, and it's exactly that same core that 3 years ago helped Hillary win the primary. And it's that same core is the reason why we have Trump as president, essentially. They saw a popular face from a past, where they remember policies from the 90s, which, of course, to anybody, everybody's like, oh, the 90s were so great, they were so wonderful. You don't realize they were actually pretty crazy, actually. We were just kids and didn't understand. But Hillary Clinton was that familiar name. They thought that she could beat Trump. They did not think that she was going to lose. I don't think there's one person in America that probably thought, at least on the left, that thought she was going to lose. Biden is in that same boat. And that's a trap. That's almost a trap. If you're not running on any platforms outside of the fact that I'm possibly better than this guy, that's not going to win you an election.
I think if it does come down to Joe Biden and Donald Trump, I mean, it is going to be a dogfight. I mean, they're going to go at each other the whole time. It's going to get very negative very fast. But again, I think the Joe Biden's weakness is he has to come up with some policies, because if he can't articulate that or can't come up with anything that really excites anybody, I think that's where he puts himself in a situation to either lose the primary or even lose a general. So that's really what he needs to start doing, is talking about what he wants to do for the country other than get Trump out of office.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, essentially, you need to do what they didn't do in 2016, and that's listen to your voter base. I mean, a lot of the older people, they're, like you said, they're past the Medicare for all. They don't need it necessarily. They have Social Security, at least for the time being, and they have other programs. But a lot of us younger people are worried about stuff like that. They're worried about student loans. We're worried about, jobs and other, essentially we're worried about everything that the older voters aren't necessarily too worried about. And people like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders run on those platforms. Joe Biden needs to either get behind that or find some way to convince young voters, because that's going to determine, I think, things.
Well, right, and people talk all the time about left versus right, centrist versus left, or what have you, but really what it comes down to a lot of times is old versus young.
Yeah.
And I think if you just took all the young people that are in the Democratic base, yeah, it's good. You're going to get a progressive out of that, either like a Bernie or someone else, if someone else emerges. But here's the thing about the older crowd, is that they turn out to vote.
Yeah, they turn out to vote. And there is, I remember for my grandma, she was there early for voting every single year. I have friends that probably haven't even voted since they registered, But it's like a lot of older people, they get after it. And they're very loud on Facebook too, on social media. They're usually the loudest, the middle-aged to older crowd. And again, like you said, they show up, Younger people, I feel like, and I'm not saying all do, because I have a lot of friends that are very involved. but there's quite a bit of, younger people that will talk all this shit online. They'll post these memes, they'll post these articles, and not one of them will go to vote. And there's early voting now, so there's really no excuse why you should miss your chance to vote.
Exactly. So anyways, if you're a registered Democrat, make sure you vote in the primary. Your voice needs to be heard. We are going to have more videos coming out as this election develops. I think we've covered enough on Joe Biden for now, but surely there's going to be more stories cropping up, so stay tuned.
Don't forget to like and subscribe, and whether you're watching on thisislittube.com or YouTube, stay tuned for so much more.